Today's daf yomi is Sanhedrin daf yod, Sanhedrin 10. Today's daf yomi, we're going to start 4 lines from the top on Yod Amud Aleph. Today's daf is dedicated for a shmir for the Chayalim, Matzah for the Shvuyim, and Yeshua for Am Yisrael. In the Seis Tzara, the daf yomi tells us 4 lines from the top on 10a, Amarava, Poni Baal Nara Murasa. Let's say witnesses come along and say that this man had an adultery with this woman who was betrothed, and then those witnesses are impeached, Ne'aragin. So those witnesses, because they're impeached and because they tried to kill him, then just like they tried to do to him, is done to them, and so the witnesses are killed. But the witnesses don't have to pay money. Why don't the witnesses pay money? The reason why the witnesses don't pay money is because they didn't try to take away the money from a specific person, because they didn't mention which girl he was mezana with, he was adulterous with. And so therefore they didn't lose any specific person money. He just was saying that this man did the sin, but they didn't name which girl. However, if he says Bitel Shalponi, but if they say and he was adulterous with the daughter of this man, Uhuzmu, and then indeed the witnesses were impeached, so then the witnesses are executed because they tried to kill the man. And Mammon, and they also have to pay money. Mammon was there, and Nefashos was there. They pay the money, Nefashos, because they tried to kill the man and the woman, and Mammon was there, and they also have to give the money to the father of the girl because they tried to cost her the ksuva. And so therefore they would say the value of the ksuva at that point. And so therefore we're talking about a girl who is still in her father's home, and the father was the one who was going to get the money for the ksuba. And then the Gemara says, if witnesses come along and they say that this man sodomized an ox, and then the witnesses were impeached, they are killed, but they don't pay money. They are killed because they were trying to get this man sentenced to death. And the Amish Amamam, because we don't know which ox they were testifying about. But Shorosh Alponi, but if they testify about this person's specific ox, and then they are impeached, then they're executed and they pay money. Mammon was there, and Nefashos was there. Money to this one and Nefashos to this one. So the Gemara says, well, this is the same case as the Nara Murasa, Hasu Amoi. Why do we need both of these cases? Aren't they the same case? Gemara says, no, the reason why we need both is Mishum de Kabai by Aliva. Because Rabbi said this law the second time because he wanted to add on a question that was in doubt about this law. The by Rabbi, because Rabbi said, Poni Rabbi Shori Mahu. If a person comes along and says that this man sodomized my ox, what will be the law? Is that going to be a valid testimony? So, do we say we kill the ox under those circumstances? The man would certainly be killed who is testifying. What about the ox? Do we say, do we say a person is considered a relative to himself, and so therefore he can't testify about himself, but he's not considered a relative vis-a-vis the money? Or perhaps, no, he's also considered a relative to his money, and so therefore he can't testify about his ox. Meaning, do we say that we split his words and we believe him about his friend, but not about the ox? Or do we say we don't say, with respect to Pagidin Debura, that Adam Karvetz Mamono, and so therefore we believe him about the ox as well. So the Gemara says, Adam Karvetz Adam Karvetz Mamono. A person is not considered to be Karvetz Mamono. And so therefore, since he's not considered a a relative of his money. Therefore, because he's believed about the ox, he's the sodomizing is also believed on his ox, and the ox is stoned. More says Makos is Bishalisha, that the lashes are adjudicated before a court of three. Menani immediately, what's the source for this? Amarafuna Makrav Shaftum Shnayim. It says in the pasuk, Yere Riv Bein Anashim Nikshu Al Mishpat Ushifatum, and they will judge them. It's Tikos Tzadik Veshuas Arasha. Ushifatum is plural, so therefore refers to two. And name based in Shakla, and the court cannot be even. So Mosifin and Odecha, you add on the third one. Harekan Shalasha. That's why the position is three. But Rabbi Shmuel is going to say 23. But first the Gemara asks, "El me'ata v'tzdiku shnayim v'rshiu shnayim," and that same pasuk says v'tzdiku v'rshiu. There should be shiva, harekan shiva. That should be 7. The Gemara says, "Ahumi balak du'ua." So this is for ua. The Amar ua ramez la'edim zomim min Torah. How do we know that there's a hint to edim zomim from the Torah? Minayin. So the Gemara says, "Wait 1 second. Ramez la'edim zomim. What do you mean a hint for edim zomim? V'aksiv kasher zamam." It says like you attempted. What's the hint that Adam Zolman get lashes? Because he made the tzaddik innocent and he made the wicked one guilty. So Gemara asks the question, so the Gemara says, what does it have to do with making the tzaddik righteous and making the wicked one guilty and giving the lashes to the wicked one? What is making the righteous one righteous? Ella, so it must be that's referring to the following case. Ella Adam, witnesses who made the person was really righteous and they testified that he was guilty. Also Edi Achrine, and other witnesses came with Stikos Tzadik, the Mikara, and they vindicated the person who was initially righteous. And they made the other people wicked. And so then if he gets lashes, you give him lashes. So that's what we do with that pasuk. It's a reference to giving them lashes. So the Gemara says, why do we need to learn out from here? Why don't we learn out from the fact that it says in the 10 Commandments, you know how to testify falsely, and you should just give them lashes for that? Gemara says, no, because that's a prohibition without an action. Any prohibition without an action, you don't get lashes for. Rabbi Shmuel taught, that's from Vishlosha. Rabbi Shmuel says the lashes are with the court of 23. My time to Rabbi Shmuel. What's the reasoning for Rabbi Shmuel? Amar Abaye Asya Rasha Mechayve Misos. Because the word wicked, we're in the bottom of Yud Amid Aleph, down lines in the bottom, because it says compare the word wicked to from somebody who's punishable by death. It says here you give him lashes and he's called wicked. The one who is wicked to die. Just like over there, it's a court of 23 to put him to death. Also by lashes, it's a court of 23 to put him to death. Rava Amar Malkus b'makom miso medes. Rava says lashes really are coming in the place of death. And so just like death is 23, also lashes are. We're on the bottom of Yud Amid Aleph. Basically 10 lines from the bottom. The Gemara is suggesting, what's the source for Rabbi Shmuel who says that lashes are a court of 23? And he explains that the source is that we compare it to execution of a person, which is in front of a court of 23. And so now Rava is saying, so Abaye said we learn out by comparing the words Rasha that appear in both places. Rava says, Malkos b'makom miso medes. The lashes is always in place of death. Amar Rav Acha, Brei de Rava or Rav Ashi, Ihacha. So if you're saying lashes are in place of death, if that's the case, Umdino Lamui. Why do we need to evaluate him beforehand? Let him just strike him. The Mayas. And if he'll die, he'll die. Why do we need to make sure that he doesn't die? Meaning to say, Before you give him the lashes, you have to value him to make sure he could survive it. But if lashes are in place of death, then why do we care? If he ends up dying, he dies. I'm going to just say parenthetically, for some reason, I don't know why, maybe this is an international story, or maybe it's just the AI sending it to my phone. I got an update this morning. In Malaysia, they're giving a person caning because he was inappropriate with women. But anyway, this person who they're giving the caning to, the lashes, it says they have a team of doctors who evaluate him beforehand to make sure he could survive the lashes. So that's what they're doing here. So we say, why do we need to do that? Let him get it, and if he dies, he dies. So Amarle, so Rava says, Amakra v'nikla achicho necha. So it says that by giving him the lashes, he'll be embarrassed before you. Kimachis agava dechayamachis means to say when you strike him, he has to be alive. So the Gemara says, and so therefore you have to check to see if he'll live. So the Gemara says, El adatanya amdu lekavo esrim emakino so el makos aruyos l'shtalish bekamein tamni sorry. So this is another halacha we're going to get to in Makos. It says you only give the lashes in groups of 23, in groups of 3. So if you say the doctor said he can only get 20, you don't give him 20, you give him 18. But why? Give him the 20. They give him the 21. We know he can only survive 20. Give him the 21. When you give it to me, it was still your brother. When you struck him, you were striking the back of a living person. So it's the 21st blow that kills him, but big deal. So the Gemara says, Amrale, no, Amakra v'nikla achicha leinecha. Achar shalaka achicha ba'ina v'leika. After you strike him, we need him to still be your brother. And if you strike him and that blow he dies, it's not going to be valid. So therefore, that's why we only give him 18. But that phrase is also a very powerful phrase. Achar shalaka, after you give him the lashes, achicha ba'ina. We need him to be your brother, and he isn't. Meaning to say, after you give him the lashes, this person is supposed to be your brother. You're supposed to view him as your brother, no longer as a criminal. So then the Mishnah said, Ibor chodesh b'shlosha. Ibor is really adding on a day. Ibor means pregnant. Adding on a day to the month. Every month can either be 29 days or 30 days. Or a chodesh can either be day 30 or day 31. So when you make a month that's me'ubar, you're adding on a day. So it says you need a quarter of 3. So the Gemara says, Chishuv Lokatani, it doesn't say the calculation. Kiddush Lokatani, doesn't say the sanctification. Ella Ibor. So it just says the adding on. So the Gemara says, means to say you need 3 in order to say Mu'uvar Chodesh. The Gemara says, Lolak Desham Amila Aber. But if the court doesn't sanctify it, on day 30, it'll be for sure Mu'ubar. It'll be for sure a month of 30 days. So Amar Abaye, Tani Kiddush HaChodesh, so change the text to say the sanctification of the court makes 3. In Tanya Nami we have a brayso, Kiddush HaChodesh, when the court sanctifies the new month, when they sit there, and we'll see how they do it at the end of the daf. The Ibor Hashana B'Shlosha, Kiddush HaChodesh, they're making a wheat month. That's also 3. Dibur Emer. Amar Rava Ibor Katana. Rava says you can't say this. It says specifically Ibor, not Kiddush. It says adding on a day, not the sanctification. Ela Marava Kiddush B'Yom Ibor B'Shlosha. Sanctification of the new moon on the day of the Ibor, on day 31, that requires 3. Meaning to say, on day 30, if Rosh Chodesh falls out on day 30 of the previous month, and so therefore the previous month was only 29 days, so you need to then, under those circumstances, sanctify the new moon with 3. But Achar Ibor, but afterwards, Leika Kiddush. If you do it on day 31, there's no sanctification. Meaning to say, if the full month was 30 days, and then it's automatically sanctified, and then 31 is automatically Rosh Chodesh. Umani, this is Rebbe Lazar ben Sadok. He did now. Rebbe Lazar ben Sadok Omer if you don't see the new moon on the night of the 30th, so you don't have to sanctify it on day 31, because it was already sanctified the previous night. Rav Nachman says, Kiddush achar ibor b'shlosha. Nachman says if you sanctify it after the ibor, that's with 3. Meaning to say, if Rosh Chodesh comes on day 31, that's when you need to sanctify. You need to have the court say it's sanctified. B'yom ibor leikel kiddush. But if you do it on day 30, then you don't need to sanctify it. Umani, whose position is? This is the position of Primo. He Tanya Primo Omer Bismano and Mekachino. So he says, meaning to say, when it comes on day 30, you don't need to sanctify because it's in the proper time. It's just when it's an extra day, you still need to say it's sanctified. Rav Ashi says, "Olam Chishav Katani." Rav Ashi says, really, it means calculations. My Ibor. What does it say when it says Ibor? Chishav the Ibor, the calculations of the Ibor. Va'idi the Kabaylo Misne Ibor Shana, meaning the deliberations of the court about whether or not to make a new moon. And since it talks about Ibor Shana, Taninam Ibor Chodesh. It uses the word Ibor, but it really means calculations, not the adding on the day. Chishav Chodesh in Kiddush Chodesh Lo. So does the Tana really think that you need 3 in order to calculate the new moon, but not to sanctify it? Mani Rebbe Lezer. This is the position of Rebbe Lezer. Tanya Rebbe Lezer Omer Ben Bismano Ben Shalo Bismano. So you never need the 3 to say Mekudesh. Tanya Shenemer V'Kidashim Mishnasa Chamishim Mishana. Shanem Ata Mekadesh V'Ata Mekadesh Chadashim. You need a court to say Kiddush, sanctification, to make it a leap year, but not an extra day of the month. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, B'shlosha, you start and you continue with 5, and then you conclude it with 7. Tanya Ketzad Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel B'shlosha Maslilim B'chamisha Nosim Gorim B'Shiva. You start with 3, continue with 5, conclude with 7. Echad Omar Leishev, V'shnayim Omar Shalol Leishev. One of the judges says we need to sit and look at the matter, and 2 say not to. Batal Yachab B'miyutu. We nullify 1 versus the 2. Shnayim Omar Leishev, Echad Omar Shalol Leishev. 2 people say to sit, and 1 says not to sit. Mosifin Aleim Ot Shnayim. We add on another 2. And we have a discussion. In that case, 2 say you need to make a new moon, a new month, an extra day. And 3 say you don't. And the 2 are nullified by the 3. 3 say you need, and 2 say you don't. You add another 2. Yeah, you need at least 7. Hani Shlosha v'Chamisha v'Shiva Kenegem Mi. What do these 3, 5, and 7 correspond to? Puiki ba Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachmani v'Chadimei. Uman Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachmani and Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi argue. V'Amri Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi v'Chadimei. Umani Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachmani. Chad Amar Keneged Birkat Kohanim corresponds to the words of Birkat Kohanim, which are in the first pasuk. There are 3 words, second 5, and third 7. Chad Amar Shlosha Keneged Shomer Yasaf. 3 corresponding to the 3 watchmen by the king Tzidkiyahu. And Chamisha Miroi Pnei HaMelech, the 5 who correspond to those who see the face of the king, and Shiva Roi Pnei HaMelech, and the 7 who correspond. Tanu Rav Yosef Hani Shlosha v'Chamisha v'Shiva Shlosha Keneged Shomer Yasaf Chamisha Miroi Pnei HaMelech and Shiva Roi Pnei HaMelech. So Abai says Rav Yosef Aden my time will parish on Marahachi. What's the reason why you didn't tell me this until now? Amarul Wavi Adanam the Tzrichliso. But Yisu Minai Milsav Amarulcho. I didn't know you needed to know. You never asked me. Have you ever asked me anything which I didn't tell you? All right, I thank you for your patience. Obviously.